Ontario's Minister of Education recently introduced a bill aimed at getting both students and school boards back to basics. More math and literacy for students, more training and direction from Queen's Park for school trustees. That minister is, of course, Stephen Lecce, the Progressive Conservative MPP for King Vaughan, and he joins us now here in our studio. Nice to have you back here.
Thanks so much.
I got to do one of these full disclosure things off the top here because we got to remind everybody, TVO provides the ministry's distance and online learning, not the agenda, not this program, not the journalism side, but the ILC, the Independent Learning Center, which has been a distance learning partner with the Ministry of Education for actually almost as many years as my life and your life combined. Okay, we got that on the record. Bill 98, the Better Schools and Student Outcomes Act. What's the mission here?
It's to strengthen the outcomes associated with student achievement. I think the overwhelming anchor and mission of the bill is to elevate standards and, frankly, elevate the ambitions we have for our kids. I think what we see is good work being done in publicly funded schools. We cannot discount amazing changes of outcomes, of employment, of graduation rates, and of creating meaningful paths to lives of purpose and dignity. However, I think one of my roles as a public servant is to play challenge function in any system.
What does that mean, play challenge function?
To insist that the agencies, boards, commissions, the people who interface with the next generation of our country are doing their best. And thus, the bill was designed, in the short title of the bill, it is about better schools and better student outcomes. Graduation rates, greater levels of students attending school, reduction in absenteeism, and most especially, a strengthening of skills development with respect to reading, writing, and math. We do believe the foundational skills, if you don't get those right, if we don't master those fundamentals, all the other good stuff we teach, social emotional learning, emotional intelligence, collaboration, all the other soft skills that are also paramount, will not be, frankly, will not be as valued unless we get the fundamentals right, which is why we're really leaning into that. And the EQAO data this year and every year for many years have revealed, I think, a concerning fact, which is we're going to have to change the system and sort of oppose status quo mentality in the education system that has been in place for some time.
How much of what you're trying to fix here is pandemic related and how much is systemic related?
You know, it's a really important point. I think the pandemic exacerbated a reality that existed before. We had children pre-pandemic, particularly when it comes to mathematics, not meeting the provincial math standard. That was true really across the country. We've seen some areas of regression, and it got compounded in the pandemic, particularly when it comes to math skills. Look at the grade 9 math EQAO data, pretty concerning data points. Now, we de-streamed the curriculum. We're trying to really lift everyone up, and even still, with more supports and more investment in that specific area, a de-streamed math, we still saw a net reduction where the majority of students are not at the provincial math standard. And therefore, when I say that data point to you, I think anyone, even if I use 2019 data, would have to be persuaded on the numbers, on the data, and you know that these outcomes cannot and should not be acceptable by any government. This is why I go back to that challenge function principle.
Gotcha. Who's in the best position to fix this? You at the provincial level, or should the priorities be set by elected school board trustees, directors of education, and so on?
I believe very strongly on this principle. I am the Minister of Education for all Ontario students in our publicly funded schools, of which we have 2 million, no less, the largest in the country. We're proud of that. And yet, as minister, very powerful title, and yet in actual application, I am unable to set out province-wide expectations when it comes to academic achievement. Now, you or a parent observing right now may think, how is that possible? In what other ministry is power so devolved away from elected provincial government? And this is the reality today. I don't have, until, should the bill pass, an authority grant me through statutory force the ability to say to school boards, you shall focus on academic achievement. We're going to now require school boards to build a board improvement plan. Part of this is to measure results. Public-facing plan that's publicly developed with parents. Consultation? Consultation built in, required. In fact, the development of the plan can only be unveiled following a meaningful consultation with parents, because many of them said, I feel a bit ignored, or rather, let me rephrase that. Many of them feel very ignored from the system today. And that may be a challenge across governments, and I'm not suggesting just school boards are challenged with this, but we've got to find a way to empower parent voices within the school system. And they have said to me, and the Premier, we need to ensure academic achievement is the foundation. Now, the bill does a lot more than that, but it does allow us to create an accountability measurement by saying to boards, go develop a plan, locally developed, consult their local communities. Every region's different. In the northwest of Ontario, it's going to be a different plan perhaps than in Toronto, and that's actually good.
But what's the or else?
Well, I think obviously we're not, I think school boards appreciate this is an objective they could unify behind. And I think that they also understand it's going to be in the Education Act, an act that has not been revised or meaningfully overhauled in 25 years.
Okay, but you've got to be able to say to them, presumably, here is what I would like you to do.
Right.
And if you get pushback from them and they don't want to do it, what's the or else?
I don't think, Steve, we're going to have pushback from school boards. When we set out legislative authority, we've never had an example, at least in my tenure as minister. I think they're going to work with us in good faith. We've demonstrated to school board associations, whom I meet with every month. There is no minister that's done this. I've continuously met with them. Every 2 weeks, I do a call with every school board chair and director of education. We started this in the pandemic. We've maintained it post-pandemic and the endemic, if you will, because I'm trying to make sure they have a pipeline to me to give me advice. These ideas are developed in partnership through the voices of parents. We've heard a lot of feedback, and frankly, a lot of school boards.
So do you know they're not doing it now?
Well, I think the data is a helpful indicator. When you have the majority of students not at the provincial mass standard, when you have Dyslexia Canada suggesting that a third of students in Ontario graduate physically, will get their graduation certificate in grade 12, and yet not be at the provincial standard for literacy for a grade 12 student, those numbers tell the story. Now, I think if we look beyond the data, we're talking about young people's lives. Under our government, while we've increased the funding and we've increased the staffing, there's 8,000 more staff in Ontario schools, and yet there's not more students. We've seen an increase in graduation from 85 to 89%. That's a huge achievement, and that's not because of government. That's because of the good work of our educators, because of the commitment of staff, because of the funding in part, but at the end of the day, it really does take a village. And we're seeing some movement in the right direction on graduation. But the other metrics that matter too, the capacity of a young person to read for their grade, to be financially literate, to have foundational skills, is not at the levels we expect. And thus, we're putting a bill on the table that creates accountability, that binds boards to build plans, that adheres to provincial objectives on strengthening those skills, and frankly, tries to change the culture from how we build schools to certify educators. It's a necessary modern overhaul of the system.
Okay, let me ask you about
static.
David Moskrop's a guy who wrote a column for our website the other day,
right,
education focused, and his take was, you guys are very interested nowadays in training people for jobs, but not necessarily educating people to be critical thinkers. What do you think of that observation?
Well, first of all, I agree, accept the premise that it's not just about employment. Our measurement of success is not just a job. It's creating life skills, job skills. It's about creating the soft skills that often many employers increasingly are elevating now when it comes to looking for the right person for the job, their capacity to collaborate, to communicate, to think critically and creatively. Those are important things we harness in our school system. I want to be very clear. While we do want young people to get good jobs, there's no doubt about it, we want them to be emotionally intelligent. We're trying to support technologically savvy, ambitious, globally minded, patriotic, good citizens of the country who want to give back. But to your point, I think the reason why we brought forth the legislation in the first place is because we accept we can do things better. And obviously, having reviewed how we build schools in the province of Ontario, right now in the city of Toronto, where we are at, for many communities in the GTHA, it will take a decade to build. And I think a fundamental question, look, I say challenge function. I use that point. You questioned me earlier, what does that mean? To any observer, right, if you're out of government or out of education, and I come in and say, should it take a decade to build a standardized school bill that is literally copy-pasted virtually everywhere in Ontario with some modest differences based on perhaps the history of the community? You'd say that's ridiculous and a waste of tax dollars. And yet that's what the status quo looks like in Ontario. When we have the same quintile of school boards, the same ones for a decade, without exception, at the bottom of performance, I would argue an honest observer would say something's got to change. When we have a Ontario College of Teachers does good work, but it takes them more than 2 times the amount of time to certify an educator from around the world than it does in BC's provincial regulator, I'd make the case that while we do good work, I think we can do much better, be smarter and more efficient in our delivery. And that's the spirit of the bill. It's to elevate our standards. It's to set a higher aim for our kids to graduate into a life skills that matter.
This bill, one thing it does differently that I haven't seen before is it gives your ministry more power to do I guess, what you will with underutilized school properties.
Right.
Why do you need that power?
$63 billion of school board capital assets, being school boards are one of the largest landlords in the country, which most people didn't know. I believe that when a taxpayer pays for a school, and a school board is now desperately looking to build a school in a growth community, and the other board has an empty school that they've been renting for 7 years to a private school, to a company, to a sports facility, and we all know that school exists, and it could be used for educational purposes. There's a great deal of frustration because of territorialism. It's not everywhere, but it is quite present, frankly. Any school board would acknowledge that there are territorial elements. There's a competitive nature to our school system. That is a strength, but it can manifest in a problematic way.
You
where
see
we
between
have,
like public and Catholic and French and whatever.
Exactly,
Okay.
and that's healthy, but it can create an unintended consequence of holding back assets. For our French school boards, for example, they're 25 years, we're proud of them, 25 years of excellence, but they historically didn't get a lot of the benefit of building up their assets over time. So they would argue the English school, Catholic, public, whatever it is, has a school down the street, but they're not selling it to me at fair market value, not for any other reason that they choose not to, because it may create some competitive disadvantage for them.
You want the right to get in there and say, you got to sell them.
I believe the parents in the province, the benchmark of their success is a school being built close to my home quickly or open for my child to learn close to home versus being bussed out. So my point of this provision is to do a few things. The first is to enable school boards to do joint use projects between the boards and between a school board and a nonprofit like the YMCA. We can leverage community to build better recreational facilities for kids, something that's not very done. 40 schools like that in the province, there's 5,000. Okay, so that's not a cultural norm. It's very unusual. You have to come for get approval from the ministry. Let's waive that. Go and leverage community, work together, build better schools for communities and for children. The second is the power of the ministry to say if a school board is not going to use the asset for themselves, for learning, then they have now a requirement, as proposed in the legislation, to go to the coterminous board to offer it to them. They have the right to put their hand up. Should they say they don't want to they do not need it, there's no intention now or in the medium term to use it, then it goes to a provincial priority list, which will include areas like long-term care. If at that point, no long-term care home wants to use it to build, then it would go to the open market. And I think that's a prudent step. The first obligation is to keep it for the school board. And the sale of that land, so let's say TDSB is a part of a school that hasn't been used since 1995. That school being sold, to be clear, because I read David and others' commentary online, and that school's, the sale, the proceeds of disposition, the cash from that sale stays with the board. That can only be used for capital, for either building their schools or maintaining their schools, because there's a great deal of backlog challenges, $15 billion when we came to power. So the point is, it's designed to better use assets for the purpose of helping kids learn. It's designed to change the culture between school boards, to work together, collaborate when it comes to learning, and then we won't have tolerance for that type of territorialism. It's hurting kids.
I got you. You know what? We could go on.
I know.
But the other guests want to have a chance at these subjects and more as well. So I'm going to thank the Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, for coming into TVO tonight and sharing his views about Bill 98, and we are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.